All right, and let's get into it. So today's session is called Spreadsheets Don't Have to Be Scary. And I think that what we're going to be talking about is pretty self-explanatory. This is meant to be a session for people who are either new. Well, most of us that have been teaching for a long time aren't exactly new to spreadsheets because they are a huge part of our life. But if you're resistant to spreadsheets, this session is for you. To maybe give you a couple of ideas of how we can make them a little bit easier for us. My name is Stephen Elliott. I am the ed tech at La Paz Middle School. I am fortunate to be one of 4 teachers that gets to teach a middle school CTE or career technology class. I love data, and I am a cat person. So any cat memes you want to send my way, feel free to do so. What's today? Today is novice beginner level Google Sheets users. Most of us have used a spreadsheet, but are we using the spreadsheet or is the spreadsheet using us? Here's the question. How do we make it do what we want it to do? What I would like you to do with me is set up a spreadsheet that will represent just a regular type of spreadsheet you would get all the time. You could even, if you have a quiz in your own Google Forms and you want to play around with your own data, that would be a great time to do that too. But basically, we're going to try and make it easier for you to get the information you want, get rid of some of that sensory overload where there's just too much information and that's not what you're trying to talk about right now. And also, we're going to do some simple calculations for some formulas that can help us make the data kind of talk back to us. If you're really interested in formulas during the sandbox time, I'm more than happy to help you figure out little things that you're trying to do, but I am teaching a session on formulas tomorrow. So if you really are looking for more of the intermediate advanced kind of stuff, we always get into some trouble in that sandbox session, me not knowing how to answer someone's question, but we figure it out. So we've got that. I am trying to move as slowly as we can. However, I do talk fast when I get excited. So please let me know either through the chat. I'll have it open the entire time, or just unmuting yourself if you need to repeat something or explain something in a different way. I'm happy to do that. This session is 100% for you. Okay. And then I'm going to ask that perhaps if you're willing, please do consider following along with me. I'm going to give you a template that you can use if you don't have any data that you want to play with, or if you have a spreadsheet that's going to be really important to you and you want to do some stuff to it, feel free to grab that out right now and start playing around with it. And maybe in the sandbox session, you might find there's more that you want to do with it that wasn't covered in this presentation. I can help you do that. So feel free to go ahead and grab the data that you want. And I just want to remind you, the reason why I love spreadsheets is it can do more things with the information. Our lives as teachers are just constantly information upon information overload. We have to remember information that's related to one thing while we're trying to do another thing, while we're trying to do 8 other things. And we're trying to meet the educational needs of 150 or more students. That's a lot. And the fact that there's a type of document, a spreadsheet in a sense, is a place where it can store all the information and we can have it take the information that we want when we're ready to talk about it. And so my process today is to teach you a little bit about that. But also the complaint, and everyone was really respectful of spreadsheets in the slam before, but the main complaint I get is they're ugly, they're yucky. I don't want another spreadsheet. Ew. I've heard those literal words before from teachers at my site. So, well, let's think about what can we do to make it better, because most people don't like looking at raw data. Just the kind, like if you were to do a Google form, for example, and you get all of that output, that first part, I have that reaction too. I go, ugh. So let's fix it. Let's format our spreadsheets so that they look easy to read. Is kind of what I was talking about in the SLAM session. Let's apply filters, which is something that I didn't get into. I'm excited to share with you. And let's try a few simple functions and see if we can get them to work. right? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to be popping back and forth between my slides and this template right here. This is the exact template I shared in the SLAM session. So if you have that, you can continue on with what we have. It's called This is a Fake Quiz, Step 1. And we're going to do the following things with it. We're going to change the font. We're going to freeze the top row. These two things I did. Alpha sorting, alternating colors. These 4 things are what I did in the SLAM. And then we're going to add some text wrapping and remove some unnecessary rows and columns. At this point, I'm going to be a little looser with my slides because what I have here is step-by-step with screenshot instructions for what to do. So if you forget how to do any of the stuff that I'm telling you, you can go back to these slides and it'll tell you step-by-step. But I'm just going to do it. I'm going to show it to you. And again, I would really love if you follow along with me so that you can do it too. All right, so here we go. Let's start by changing the font. And then this is what I talked about in my SLAM session. My favorite button is this one at the top left corner. What will happen is I click on it and it highlights everything. So if I make any changes using the quick menus up here or even over here, it's going to apply those to every single cell. And if I scroll down, you can see this is also a thing that people don't like about spreadsheets, that infinite scroll thing where it goes all the way over and you only have this much data, but there's all of this. I'm going to tell you more about that later and what I like to do to make it a little bit easier. So with this, let's make the font larger. I'm going to put it to 12-point font. I'm going to I can even change it. So if Arial isn't your favorite, you prefer Open Sans, or you prefer a serifated script like Times New Roman, I can put it in Times New Roman. I don't know. What do you like? Make it readable for you. I think Open Sans is supposed to be a little bit better for people who struggle with reading. I can't remember exactly what that is, but there we go. That's helpful. With everything selected, we can also do, and I showed this in the SLAM as well, the alternating colors. So the menu here is Format. When we go down here, we click Alternating Colors. And I can choose whatever style I want. I can also click plus to add a custom style if I want to change colors around for something. But let's just go with, I like this purple one. I like purple. And then I just press done. But if I didn't like that one and I wanted to start over, I can click remove. And then I would just go back into, this is my secret trick to show you this more than once. Go back into the format menu item, alternating colors, and we'll stick with that purple. And I'm going to press done. Okay. And with that unselected, now I have a little bit easier to read horizontally. I'm not going to look at Clarabelle over here and confuse her scores with Minnie Mouse over here, because this one's white and this one's purple. And it does that instantly, and I can do it as many times as I need to. I can also apply something to just one, and this is again what I showed off during the SLAM. If I click the numbers here, I apply something to just the top, or I could apply something to just this line right here, or I could shift click and apply something to a whole section right here. But for right now, I just want to make this text bold. And if I go down to this more, and this will, depending on if you have your window at full screen, more of these menu items will be available. So if you see it slightly different, it's because I have a very small screen right now, because I'm doing double duty with the SLAM and the demonstration here. If I want this to be center aligned, it's just like a Google Doc. I can do that. I could also, if I really wanted to, go into this little menu right here that says borders. And with just this selected, I would put outer borders, and I would end up with, oops, let me do that again. I would just put, actually, I would put the full borders here, but then I can make it a little bit bigger. So I could actually have like a little box right here. And if I did this using that, my favorite box right here, I could go in and say, boom, right here. And now we have borders on everything. If I wanted the top to be thicker and the bottom to be different, I could just select this one, go back in, borders, use a thicker one. And there we go. Now every box is like that. And I can undo it just as easily. I don't feel like that's as readable to me, but if for different purposes, it might be more useful. Okay, so we're also going to freeze the top row, and we're going to do some alpha sorting. Now, the reason I like to explain alpha sorting is because if I sort alphabetically by last name and then by period, I'm going to get the order in which the student's name appears in my gradebook. So then I have my spreadsheet open in one window or on one screen. I got the gradebook open in the next one. I can take their score right here and just enter and do that really quickly. The purpose of understanding how to use a spreadsheet is so that you do not waste any extra time. So you're updating your gradebook is fast and easy. Knowing what score the student got is fast and easy. Being able to analyze which ones student didn't do so well on should be easy and fast. So that's why we want to learn about spreadsheets. And you'll find some of this applies to the other things that we do in our school as well, because Synergy is a spreadsheet. Google Classroom is a spreadsheet. They're collecting students' data in the exact same way. You can download spreadsheets of student data from Synergy and manipulate them to make the things you want. I have some examples of that I can show off later. So like I said last time, if we wanted to freeze a column or a row, excuse me, I would just take this, highlight it right here where it says number 1, and then go into view. Sometimes I forget to freeze 1 row. All right, when I've done that, you'll notice this little gray line. And again, I would highly recommend that you follow along with me if you want to be able to do this. We learn by doing, not so much by listening. So if you're here and you want to learn this, follow along with me. I'm going to demonstrate it again in a second. But look what this does is allows the top line to not be moved. And I can also, if I wanted to keep the student's score right at the front here, I can highlight these 2 columns, go into view, and press freeze up to column B, because I have column B highlighted. If I highlight it up to column C, this would say up to column C. So you can freeze as many as you like. And so now when I scroll to the right, I'm going to see the score of the students. It's going to stay there. I could do the same thing with their name. I could do it with whatever stuff I wanted to have it done with. So these are ways to keep you aware all the time of what you're looking at and where it lines up with the other stuff that you're looking at. All right, so from here, our next step is to do some text wrapping, and then we're going to remove some unnecessary columns, but I'm not going to delete those columns. I'll show you. I did do this during the Slam too, but here's an example of when things get rough with the spreadsheets. Look at column J. Column J is a writing. The students wrote a paragraph, and sometimes we use Google Forms for writing. I do. And I want to be able to see the student's response in a small area. But what this does is it takes all the text all the way to the side. So I'm scrolling left and right to see what they wrote, and it's not time efficient. I want to be able to see everything together. So here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to column J. And column J, believe it or not, column J is the only column with text in it. K and L, they don't have any text in them. But we have our text wrapping set to overflow, which means that whenever there's words written and they're longer than the box that we have, it's going to flow into the next empty column. We also have other modes like this is clip mode. So if you notice, I'm in this menu at the bottom here. I'm in the extra menu, but if you're in a full screen, you might see that it's just a part of the main drop-down menu. And this little line with an arrow, we're currently set as overflow, as I mentioned. But if I click wrap right now this is crazy because it's too tight. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see what it looks like. Now we've got the paragraph that the students wrote. And I can make this line longer and wider as much as I need. And if I decide, okay, you know what? I don't need this prompt to show up as a whole paragraph. I can go back and change the text wrapping to clip in this case. And so now we just have, oh, I see the first few words. That's all I need to, I remember what the prompt was because I wrote it. So now the students' paragraphs are right here. Now I'm working in a really small window, so this is a little bit crazy how much stuff is here. But in a full-size spreadsheet, you're seeing every student's response in paragraph form, and you have frozen on the top and on the side whatever information you might need in order to make sure that you understand what they're doing. But let's say I do not want the timestamp. I don't want to see that timestamp. It's information that's irrelevant to me. Let me hide it. 2 fingers on a trackpad, 2-finger tap, hide column. Cool. Let's get rid of that infinite scroll problem. Look at all of these columns. I don't need them. Click column K. Shift and click column P. 2-finger tap. And go down to the eyeball that's crossed out. Hide this column. Okay, now it's just my quiz. Let's do another thing. Let's get rid of all of this. The quiz is over. We can always get the columns back later if we want. I'll show you that. I'm going to click number 14, and I'm going to use Control, Shift, and the down arrow key. This is another way to do this. And that selected everything underneath where I selected. So it didn't select above, just underneath. Control, Shift, and the down button. Now with that selected, let me do the same thing. 2-finger tap, hide rows 14 to 113. Okay, now I just have my students and what they've said. And by the way, if I want my rows back, let's say we do some retakes and now there's more student information, I got to get it. I just 2-finger tap on the side and I'm going to click where underneath where it says hide row, it says unhide rows. Let's do that. All right, they're all back. And with a Google form, you're going to see obviously that when there's new forms, it's just going to add more rows automatically. But I could also 2-finger tap on the side here and I could insert more rows. I could also use this button on the bottom, add 1,000 more rows. Okay, that's a lot. It's a bit extra, but I could add 100 more rows if I needed to. Depends on what you're using the spreadsheet for, but I do think that this is useful for analyzing something like quiz scores. So Control Shift down. I'm saying Control Shift down. I'm using my MacBook right now. I'm trying really hard not to say Command Shift down, but that there's a keyboard shortcut for everything on all platforms that you could use. All right, so cool. I'm glad that that seems to be helpful to some of you. And let's go on to the next step. So I'm skipping all of these slides because these are the things I just demonstrated to you. All right. Here's one of my favorite things. Let's filter it. Let's say I'm only focusing on period 1 right now. I've got periods 1, 2, and 3, 2, 1. Oh, let me do that filter, the sorting thing really quick. Like I said, last name and period are the ways that we enter students' information into the grade book. So if you see on the top of the column D, there's a little triangle. And if you scroll down, when you click on that triangle to sort sheet, that's a real tough one to say, especially in the morning, sort sheet A to Z. If I click that, now I have alphabetically sorted the last name, but the periods are all over the place. Well, while the last name is alphabetically sorted, if I do the same thing, click that little arrow on the top of column E and sort A to Z, now it still continues to be alphabetical within the period because of the order that I did it in. Last name was the first one I did, and period was the second one I did. So then now it's sorted according to period. And if I had my Synergy open and I was trying to get these names into my grade book, I would see the name exactly. And the only time that I would have to pause is if a student didn't complete an activity or they had no response, and I'd have to realize, oh, that student did not take that assessment. So I would have to, add their information in as missing or late or whatever it is that I need to do. But it's an easier, faster way to just look back and forth and put in the information that you need to put in. Okay, so with that being done, we're going to add a filter. Once again, I'm going to use my favorite button. All right, and I've highlighted everything. Technically, I'm highlighting hidden rows too, hidden columns. So like that timesheet one is over here. It's still highlighted too, the timestamp. I'm going to rehide that. All right, so let's go into view. No, let's go into tools. No, data. I'm sorry. Erase. Let's go into the tab that says data, and there's a menu item that says create a filter. So I'm going to click on it, and you're going to see a little icon. This is a familiar icon. You're going to see it in Synergy. You're going to see it in Google Classroom sometimes. You're going to see it in all of our favorite EdTech apps that are secretly spreadsheets. It's the symbol for filter. It's basically like, what are those called? It's, yeah, like the thing you pour oil into. I can't think of it. A funnel. It's a funnel. Yeah, it's an example of a funnel. So if I click on it, notice the top and sides turned green. And I'm going to see if I can zoom in enough so that you can see this. Right here, next to where it says score, there's this little upside down triangle. And you'll see, since I selected everything, you're going to see it on all of these columns. This little upside down triangle. This is the filter. And let me zoom back out again so you can see what I'm going to do with it. All right. I just want to know who answered question H with the word volcano. All right. I'm going to go into the filter. Now I'm clicking on that upside down triangle. And look at what here. These are all the responses within this form. And it's actually, there's only 4 of them because this was a multiple choice question. So there are only 4 options. Well, there also is one for blanks, right? But if it were a writing prompt, then you would see every single option, which is not as useful. But what I'm going to do is, there's a link where it says displaying 4. I'm going to click where it says clear. All right. And now all those check marks disappeared. Watch. I'll show you again because there's a link that says select all. I'm going to press clear. They disappear. So I want to know who put volcano. I'm checking only volcano, and I'm going to press OK. All right. Looks like only 4 students answered with volcano. Now I can figure out, okay, who got this question right, and what's the consistent thing that they know and don't know. That's cool. I've never thought to answer my questions like that. If I want it back, I'm going to open that, and you can notice that the, see if I can just zoom in again. You'll notice that the filter, the upside down triangle, was replaced with a filter symbol. That means there's an active filter on this tab. That's how you could find it if you forget later. Now, if I go back and press select all 4, notice the check marks are back. I press OK. And now all of my data is back. Everything is back. Yes, active filters, Jose, are an excellent way to just take away the stuff that you don't need to think about right now. And that's helped me a lot. And if I'm wanting to go period by period, check this out. There's a filter on this one because I used my favorite button and I applied it to everything. So I can clear. I just want period 1, press OK. There are my period 1 responses. I clicked it again, select all or clear, just period 2. Okay, Here's my period 2 answers. They're all here. Uncheck period 2, period 3. Okay. These are my period 3 answers. And it's easy to, once you really know and are comfortable with using these tools, it's easy to look in and then zoom back out really fast. And so that's what filters do for me. Yeah, and this has been a life-changing thing for me to be able to use this stuff. So I'm at about halfway through my session time. So I want to get to the third step. Oops, wrong tab. I'm back over here. Yeah. All right. And just a reminder. So we can find, here's some ways that filters can be used. We can find out how many people scored high or low on a quiz. We can filter by score. We can filter correct answers to see the most common mistakes. So like if we know this is the correct answer, well, what's the most common one that is not correct that people chose on this quiz? And that way I can learn, what do I need to reteach? We could remove different periods, is what I did. And we could also find out if 2 connected quiz items are areas of need. So I can filter in one tab and filter in another one. Say I want to know, well, who answered volcano, and then who didn't know. I'm trying to remember what's on this quiz. I wrote it weeks ago. Okay, let's say who doesn't know the product of photosynthesis, and who doesn't know this thing about chemical reactions. So baking soda and water together, nothing will happen. So I want nothing. I'm going to unclick. Okay. And from that, from all of those people who understood this, or wait, no, I'm sorry. So the person who thinks a chemical reaction happens when you mix baking soda and water, these people answered incorrectly, right? So let me go in here and figure out a product of photosynthesis is going to be oxygen and glucose, which is this right here. So minus this, so everyone who answered wrong on both of these are the students who answered, and I can see I've got a filter here and a filter here, who answered wrong on both. And so that's 4 students in my group of 12 or so. That's interesting information. A PLC could talk about that. You could also use it to make some groupings in your class for extension and remediation. So just a reminder that there's a lot of ways that filters could be very useful to you. And I would love to hear your ideas if you want to put in the chat if this is giving you a thing that you want to think about. Sometimes it's easier to remember what we want to do later if we take a second to say, oh, this gives me an idea. So feel free to use the chat as a sounding board for some of your ideas, how we could use this. Okay, and then if you have not been following along with me and you'd really like to, on slide 21, there's a link to a template that has most of the things that we've done right here done. So you'd be able to use, it's the same quiz, you'd be able to follow along with me about in regards to functions. So I think that's one that a lot of people have had questions about. As I mentioned, I will be doing a session on functions tomorrow if you really want to come in for the next step. And I'll be showing off some of the crazy spreadsheets that I've made in the last few years that use these things to analyze a bunch of huge information at once. But we're going to talk about counting and averaging, and we're going to use the quiz as a backdrop for that. So we will need to restore the rows below that we hid before, because we're going to use some of these rows to create our functions down at the bottom here. You could put them anywhere on your spreadsheet. You can even put them on a different tab, but this is going to be easier for me. And just a reminder, I only need like 2 rows, so we can hide these again. And now I've got 2 rows at the bottom. I'm going to make these rows a little bit bigger so you guys can see what's going on in them. Hello. All right, so these are a bit bigger than I would normally have them be. Let's go back to explaining what a function is. So a function is a set of commands that usually ask for a range and a criteria. a range, and a criteria. So you need to name the function that you want, and you need to name the cells or the boxes within the spreadsheet that you want it to look through. And the criteria is what you want it to do. All right. So we're going to start with a COUNTIF function. A COUNTIF function asks you for a range, and then it will count the number of times that your parameter or your criteria is true. So if I take this right now, if I go, whoops, let me go back here. If I go COUNTIF and my function is H2 to H13, let me try that. So if I'm right here, I've got H. This is my volcano earthquake question, right? And I don't need H1. So H1, it's a grid. So you look at the alphabet letter and you look at the number. I don't need H1 because that's the question that I asked. So I start from H2 and I go down to H13. So what does that look like? I start with an equal sign. Equals. Let me bring this up a little bit in size. Equals. Count if. And now the cool thing here is you notice that it pops up this little window. If they're like, I think you want a COUNTIF function, you can just click on it and it sets it up for you. And it tells you what you need, the range and the criterion. So my range in this case is H2 to H13. H2, and I get a colon, H13. Oh, and look, it's highlighted for me. That's nice. I know that I got the right one. If I need an example, as this little pop-up, magic pop-up box comes in, it gives me an example of what it looks like or what it could look like. Now, this is hard to see on my screen, which is why I really recommend that you have yours open with something to play around with. They'll tell you how it works. They'll give you a link to where you can learn more about it, and they'll give you an example of a correct one. So I'm going to use this to count the number of times the word unearthquake shows up. And because it's text, I have to put it in quotation marks. So I'm going to put quote, space, unearthquake, end quote. And then I need to close the parentheses. So the whole thing is in parentheses inside of the COUNTIF function. And I see that within quotation marks, I have the text that I'm looking for. If you know anything about coding, you'll know that that's kind of how you have to use text within coding. There's some similarities here. If I press enter, I get the number 5. And when I click the box, if I want to, I'm not trying to freak anyone out, but the number 5 isn't actually in this cell. What's in this cell is in this box up here. The COUNTIF function is there, but the cell itself does not contain the number. The number represents the result of this formula. There's a bunch of reasons when you get more advanced with spreadsheets why that might be relevant right now. It's just something to think about. Try not to lose any sleep over it. And I can just put a little title on the side. How many students wrote an earthquake? So, and again, I would probably want to put this into that text wrapping so that I know what that's representing. And it's right here. If I wanted this to be really easy to read, I could center it using, this is just the regular stuff that you have in Google Docs. It's all that same stuff. I can even make the text much larger. All right. And I can do this with any of these questions here. I can also utilize the information here to get some averages. And so let me try and do that right now. And I'm gonna, just so you know that you can do this from anywhere, I don't have to put it under the right column. I'm gonna look at the score here and I wanna get the average, and it's gonna be here. I'm gonna put equals, oh, average, okay. And there's an autocomplete where it's saying, do you want the average of E2 to E13? Great guess, because I'm in column E, but that's not actually what I want. So I'm going to put average. And what I want is the average of B2 to B13, because B is where the scores are. B2, and I need a colon, to B13. And then I close my parentheses, and I'm going to press enter. So the average is 7 out of 15, which means we really need to reassess some of the information in this class. But just a little shout out to my session tomorrow. You're going to find that you may want to compare specific smaller groups. So like if I had a column in my spreadsheet that said whether the student was an EL, an SWD, youth in transition, or homeless youth is a term I think that we're using now. I can do a count if with an S, count ifs function, which would let me do multiple criteria. So average from the score if the student is marked as this group. And you could see how quickly we could start to compare different groups against each other with the click of a few buttons, just learning how to input the function into the right spot. So there we go. That is one of the ways that you can utilize functions. Now, I wanted to talk about some functions. It is on the slides, excuse me. It is a bit on the slides, but we wouldn't use them in this case. I think when you're trying to add some things together, you can find some functions are very useful when you're trying to add large groups of data together, if you're trying to take some numbers and turn them into something. Also, when it comes to budgets and financial planning, tomorrow, I think during the SLAM session, if you're planning on coming, but you're not coming to my session, you'll find I'm going to walk you through a little bit of simple sum function stuff where you just get an opportunity to make a budget planner, something I'm doing with my esports league at La Paz right now. So there's all kinds of really cool things you can do. There's a lot of mathy stuff, minus, multiply, divide. And then there's other things that take criteria, like there's average if, sum if, count if. All of those things are other things you can do with your data to play around with it. If you want to know more about Sheets functions, I just want to show off this little link right here. See if my links show up. Yeah. So this is the Google Sheet function list. This is part of the Google Docs editor's help. It's available to everyone who has a Google account, so it's free. And this goes from A to, let's see, there are so many, right? There's a billion of them. And it goes all the way down to, does it actually have a Z? No. But there are also different categories. So web, text, things that are statistical, things that are math-based, things that help you look up information. There's also some stuff that uses more like logic or SQL query type stuff, which if you're into, again, if you're into coding, that might be really exciting. If you know nothing about any of this, it might be a little much to take. I will talk a little bit about that tomorrow, but let's keep it simple for today. And notice, this is a spreadsheet. Can we use any of the tools on this? Like, oh, I'm sorting A to Z when I do that. That's interesting. They've set that function up for us. I can sort A to Z by the name of the function too. Now it's not telling me the category first, it's telling me the name first because I did that sorting. So the more you learn about spreadsheets, the more your ability to engage with different kinds of websites and different kinds of apps also increases when you start to recognize that some things are different. I'm just kind of curious now that I'm down here. Is there anything that has a Z? There's some X's, there's some Y's. Yeah, oh yeah, we do have some Z's. I don't know all of these functions. I know the ones that are helpful to me. And tomorrow's session, I will definitely be talking about the ones I find most helpful to me as a teacher or as a school leader if you're doing leadership stuff. So I won't know all of these. I doubt there's anyone who knows all of them, but you might find the perfect one for you at this link. And you can do a lot of Googling to find specific functions when you know how to ask. So cool. All right. We are a little bit early, but only by about 3 minutes because I'm supposed to give you a 15-minute break and we're going to come back at 11 for the sandbox session. If you have had enough of spreadsheets and you're not planning on coming back to the session, either let me know by sending me a quick Google chat or let me know in this chat and I will send you the feedback form. Otherwise, in 15 minutes, we're going to have a sandbox time. I can demonstrate other things, answer your questions, or you can work on something that you're interested in working on. Yes, I agree. You can never have enough of spreadsheets. You can have had enough of a specific spreadsheet that's bothering you, but that's what this sandbox session is about. So I will stay here in case anyone has any questions or feedback for me that you want to talk about, but we'll be back in 15 minutes for the break. And I will, at that time, give you the sandbox sign-in sheet, the sign-in for the sandbox time. All right. It's not going to be the same link for the meet, but it's not going to be the same link for the sign-in. So I'll give you the new sign-in in 15 minutes. So let's go easy on ourselves and say we'll be back here at 11 o'clock. All right. So feel free to take your break. Hang out if you like. And we'll see you all in about 15 minutes.